The Sentinel's hull shifted in response to her thoughts, becoming transparent from the inside, offering a breathtaking view of the galaxy spinning slowly around them. Stars being born, stars dying, civilizations rising and falling, all part of a cosmic dance that had continued for billions of years. And among those stars, 3 civilizations that had once been bitter enemies were now learning to become something new, guardians of a future they would shape together. The Arbiters were right about one thing, Ilara said softly. None of us had the complete answer on our own. But together, Alliance stability, Krell precision, human adaptability. We have a chance against whatever the void holds. The director nodded, his expression solemn. Then we continue as planned. The expansion of the Sentinel Protocol, the sharing of quantum technology. With appropriate safeguards, yes. Ilara's augmented eyes glowed slightly brighter. The age of isolation is over. For all of us. Whatever comes next, we face it as one galaxy, not separate species fighting for dominance. As if in response to her words, the Sentinel systems hummed with renewed energy. The ship hadn't just been a weapon against the Krell. It had been the catalyst for a transformation none of them had anticipated. A reminder that in a universe governed by uncertainty, the only constants were change and adaptation. And as the combined fleet continued its exercises against the backdrop of infinite stars, a new chapter in galactic history had begun. One where ancient enemies became reluctant allies, where isolation gave way to integration, and where the future remained unwritten. Not because it was predetermined by arbiters or empires or alliances, but because those who would shape it had finally learned the most important lesson of all, that together they were stronger than the sum of their parts. For 18 days, there was no response. The Krell continued their inexorable advance, conquering 4 more systems and adding their resources to the Dominion's war machine. On the 19th day, as Thela was overseeing the evacuation of Proxima Station, her communications officer interrupted with urgent news. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission on the same frequency we used to contact the humans. Thela rushed to the communications terminal. Put it through. The message was brief. We received your call. One ship is en route. Coordinates to follow. Prepare for arrival in 3 standard days. The officer looked at Thela in confusion. One ship, that's all they're sending. Thela's expression was unreadable. Either they don't understand the scale of our predicament, or they know something we don't. 3 days later, representatives from the Alliance's remaining military forces gathered at the coordinates provided in the human transmission. Thela had insisted on being present, bringing her flagship, the Indomitable, along with a small escort fleet. Anything on sensors? She asked, scanning the starfield through the main viewport. Nothing yet, Admiral, replied her sensor officer. Wait. Energy signature detected. It's unusual. Unusual how? It doesn't match any known propulsion system. And it's small, far smaller than a standard capital ship. A ripple seemed to pass through space itself, and suddenly a vessel appeared before them. It was sleek and angular, approximately 1/5 the size of the Indomitable, with a hull that seemed to shift between colors like oil on water. No visible weapons, no external engine ports, just smooth, seamless construction that defied conventional shipbuilding principles. We're being hailed, announced the communications officer. A holographic projection formed above the command deck, showing the human female. Her skin was pale, her hair dark and cropped close to her skull. She wore a form-fitting uniform of deep blue with silver accents, and her eyes, Thela noted with surprise, were augmented, glowing faintly with an inner light. I am Commander Ilara Voss of the Sentinel, she said, her voice calm and measured. I understand you have a Krell problem. Thela stepped forward. Commander Voss, I am Admiral Thela Vax of the Galactic Alliance. We appreciate your response to our call, but I must ask, is this all the assistance your people can provide? A slight smile curved Ilara's lips. The Sentinel is all you need. Admiral, Now, please brief me on the current tactical situation. The gathered officers exchanged skeptical glances, but Thilla silenced them with a gesture. The Krell Dominion has conquered nearly a third of Alliance space in less than 3 months. Their technology neutralizes our most advanced weapons, and their tactics suggest they can predict our every move. Ilara nodded. The Krell rely on technological superiority and overwhelming force. They've never faced an opponent they couldn't analyze and counter. And you believe your single ship can change that? Asked Thila's first officer, unable to hide his skepticism. The Sentinel isn't just a ship, Ilara replied. It's a statement of intent, a reminder that some things in this universe cannot be predicted or controlled. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the Indomitable. Krell scout ships, shouted the sensor officer. 5 vessels, Hunter class, approaching at high velocity. Thilla turned to Ilara. They found us. We need to retreat. No, Ilara interrupted. The reckoning. Archon Vex Mailer stood before the great void window of the Krell command ship, inexorable dominance. His elongated fingers, tipped with sensory organs capable of detecting radiation fluctuations, traced patterns across the tactical display. 5 scout vessels, Hunter-class predators that had never failed a mission, now drifted powerless in space. Their crews, connected to the hive mind through neural interfaces, had experienced something unprecedented. Confusion. Explain this aberration, Vexmeller demanded, his voice a modulated harmonic that caused the junior officer's exoskeletons to vibrate uncomfortably. Fleet Commander Zertan approached with appropriate deference, his head crest flattened in submission. The vessels encountered an unknown ship, Archon. Preliminary analysis indicates it may be human. The word hung in the air like a forbidden incantation. For generations, the Krell historical archives had contained only fragmentary references to humans, a primitive species that had inexplicably vanished during the early expansion era, presumed extinct after the destruction of their homeworld. Humans, Vexmeller repeated, the word strange in his mouth. Access the ancestral memory. I want everything we know about this species. The great memory core of the inexorable dominance hummed to life, projecting holographic data streams that flowed like liquid mercury through the command chamber. Most species in the galaxy have predictable development patterns, biological evolution followed by technological advancement, then either self-destruction or integration into the greater cosmic order. The Krell had long ago determined their role was to accelerate this process, absorbing worthy technologies and eliminating chaotic elements. But the data on humans revealed something discordant. Their technological development was erratic, observed Zertan, scanning the historical records. They achieved spaceflight while still engaged in primitive tribal warfare. They developed fusion energy before mastering basic resource management. Their scientific progress came in unpredictable leaps rather than the logical progression observed in other species. Vexmeller's sensory fingers trembled slightly as he absorbed this information. And their extinction. Confirm it. Zertan hesitated. The records are incomplete, Archon. Their homeworld was indeed destroyed in the cataclysm, but there are anomalies in the data. Reports of human ships vanishing beyond the Crimson Veil. Communications that ceased abruptly. Not extinction, Vexmeller concluded. Strategic withdrawal. A new alert flashed across the tactical display. The 5 disabled scout ships had self-destructed simultaneously, their destruction signatures indicating complete molecular disintegration. The Krell protocol for preventing technology from falling into enemy hands. The human vessel has rejoined an Alliance fleet, reported a sensor officer. They appear to be organizing a defensive formation in the Centauri system. Vexmeller's mind worked rapidly, calculating possibilities. The Alliance was broken, their military forces scattered and demoralized. This human intervention was unexpected but ultimately irrelevant. The Dominion would adapt, as it always had. Prepare the Armada, he commanded. We will crush this final resistance, and demonstrate the futility of their hope. In the Centauri system, the Sentinel hung in space beside the remaining Alliance fleet, a mere 47 ships of various classes, many bearing the scars of previous encounters with the Krell. Commander Ilara Voss had transferred to the Indomitable for a final tactical briefing before the Krell arrived. "Your plan is unconventional," Admiral Thela said, studying the holographic battle projection. "Conventional tactics failed you," Ilara replied. "The Krell expect you to either form a defensive perimeter around the inhabited planets or attempt to flank their main force. They've countered both approaches dozens of times. And instead you want us to do nothing. I want you to be unpredictable." Ilara manipulated the hologram, highlighting key positions. "The Sentinel will engage the Krell vanguard alone. Your ships will remain powered down in these positions, appearing to be debris or disabled vessels. When I give the signal, you'll activate and target these specific points on the Krell formation." General Cronus rumbled his disapproval. "You're using yourself as bait. Even with your technology, you cannot hope to survive against their entire armada." Ilara's augmented eyes fixed on the massive Titan. "The Sentinel wasn't built to fight fair, General. It was built to win." "Before we commit to this," Thela interjected, "my officers deserve to know what you promised to explain. Why did humanity hide for 1,000 years? Why return now?" The command deck fell silent as Ilara walked to the viewport, gazing out at the stars. For a moment, she seemed to be communing with the Sentinel, though no visible communication took place. "Humanity nearly destroyed itself many times," she finally said. "We developed weapons before wisdom reached for the stars while still fighting over dirt. When we encountered alien life, we realized our chaotic nature was disturbing to more ordered species. She turned back to face them. Some wanted to conquer us. Others wished to guide our development. None understood us. The Alliance of that era saw us as a potential threat, unpredictable, volatile. There were discussions about containment. That's ancient history," Thela protested. "The modern Alliance would never. The modern Alliance is facing extinction because it became too predictable," Ilara interrupted. "Too rational. Too convinced of its own righteousness." She approached the war table again. "When the cataclysm came, a natural phenomenon, not an attack as many believed, some humans took it as an opportunity. We faked our extinction, established colonies beyond the Crimson Veil, and watched. We built a civilization that embraced our chaotic nature rather than suppressing it." "And the Sentinel?" asked General Cronus. "Is it representative of your technology?" A small smile played across Ilara's lips. "The Sentinel is unique. It's what we call a chaos engine, a ship designed to operate outside the normal laws of physics, powered by the quantum uncertainty principle itself. We couldn't build a fleet of them even if we wanted to. Each one requires special circumstances." "What circumstances?" Thela pressed. Ilara's hand moved unconsciously to touch her temple, near her augmented eyes. "A direct neural interface with a human mind that can conceptualize quantum states. The ship doesn't just have a pilot, it has a partner." Before anyone could respond, alarms sounded throughout the Indomitable. "Krell fleet detected," announced the sensor officer. "Emerging from hyperspace at the system's edge. Counting. By the ancestors, it's their entire invasion force. Over 200 ships, including 15 dreadnoughts." Ilara straightened, her expression hardening. "It's time. Remember the plan. Power down until my signal." As she turned to leave, Thela caught her arm. "You're outnumbered 200 to 1. Numbers," Ilara replied, "are just another form of predictability." The Krell Armada emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, a geometric display of military precision. At its center, the massive inexorable dominance dwarfed even the dreadnoughts that flanked it. Long-range scanners swept the system, detecting the scattered Alliance vessels, apparently disabled or attempting to hide. On the command deck of the inexorable dominance, Arch and Vex Meller observed with satisfaction. They'd lost the will to fight. Begin standard conquest protocol. Arction, interrupted Zur-10. The human ship approaches. Alone. Vexmeller's sensory appendages quivered with interest. Display. The tactical hologram showed the Sentinel accelerating toward the Krell formation, its hull now gleaming like polished obsidian. No weapons fire, no attempt at evasive maneuvers, just a direct approach. Analysis, demanded Vexmeller. The science officer's exoskeleton clicked nervously. Unknown propulsion system. Energy signature fluctuating in patterns that defy prediction. No detectable weapons, yet the field surrounding the vessel is disturbing our sensors. It's a trick, Zur-10 declared. One ship cannot stand against the might-off. Deploy the hunting pack, Vexmeller ordered. Let us test this human vessel's capabilities directly. 20 Krell fighters broke formation, their segmented hulls resembling predatory insects as they swarmed toward the Sentinel. They fired in unison, energy lances converging on the human ship from all directions, an attack pattern that had shattered Alliance battleships in seconds. The Sentinel didn't evade. As the energy weapons struck, they seemed to pass through the ship without effect, as if hitting a hologram. Then the Sentinel flickered. In an instant, it was no longer where it had been, but among the Krell fighters. What happened next defied conventional understanding of space combat. The Sentinel didn't fire weapons or release torpedoes. It simply moved around, between and through the Krell vessels. And wherever it passed, the fighters experienced catastrophic failures. Some imploded, their hulls collapsing inward. Others spun wildly, their guidance systems suddenly responding to phantom commands. A few simply disappeared, as if they had never existed. In 30 seconds, all 20 fighters were gone. The Sentinel continued its approach toward the main fleet, accelerating. Impossible, whispered Zur-10. Vexmeller's mind raced. The Krell had conquered 1,000 worlds by following a simple formula. Analyze, adapt, overwhelm. But how could they adapt to something that defied analysis? All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel, he commanded. Full spectrum, maximum intensity. The Krell armada responded as one, hundreds of weapons systems targeting the Sentinel. Space itself seemed to warp under the intensity of the barrage. Energy beams, particle lances, gravity distortions, all converging on a single point. Aboard the Indomitable, powered down to minimal systems, Admiral Thela watched in horrified fascination. No ship could survive that, she whispered. And yet the Sentinel did more than survive. It danced through the barrage, its movements impossible to track, appearing and disappearing across the battlefield, as if the rules of physics were merely suggestions. Where it passed, Krell ships faltered. Some lost power, others fired upon their own allies, their targeting systems corrupted. A few began to break apart, their molecular bonds mysteriously weakening. The human is inside our command network, reported a Krell officer, his voice tinged with an emotion the species rarely experienced. Fear. Our systems are experiencing contradictory instructions. Vexmeller watched as the Sentinel approached one of the mighty dreadnoughts. The massive vessel fired all weapons, creating a wall of energy that should have atomized anything it touched. The human ship passed through it unscathed, and then, impossibly, through the dreadnought's hull itself, as if the solid matter were no obstacle. The dreadnought shuddered, its lights flickering, and then went dark. A moment later, its reactor core detonated, the explosion taking 2 nearby cruisers with it. What is happening? Demanded Vexmeller, his harmonics distorted with stress. The human vessel, reported the science officer, appears to be altering the quantum state of matter it encounters. It's changing the fundamental properties of our ships at the subatomic level. For the first time in his long existence, Archon Vexmeller felt uncertainty. The Krell had always believed in absolute physical laws, in the predictable nature of the universe. Their entire society, their conquest of the galaxy, was built on this foundation. And now a single human ship was proving it all wrong. Ilara Voss was no longer entirely human, not in the conventional sense. Her consciousness expanded beyond her physical form, merging with the Sentinel systems in ways that defied explanation. She didn't pilot the ship. She became it, feeling the quantum fluctuations as extensions of her own body, sensing the possibilities of where particles might be and guiding them to where she needed them. The Krell ships were formidable by conventional standards, but to Ilara's enhanced perception, they were rigid, limited things. Their certainty was their weakness. Where they expected matter to be solid, she made it permeable. Where they relied on energy to flow in one direction, she reversed it. As the Sentinel passed through the heart of the Krell formation, Ilara targeted the neural networks that connected the fleet, not to destroy them, but to introduce doubt, the concept most alien to the Krell collective consciousness. What if your sensors lie? What if your weapons fail? What if everything you believe about reality is wrong? The Krell had no defense against such fundamental uncertainty. Their ships began to break formation, some firing randomly, others attempting to retreat. The perfect geometric pattern of their fleet dissolved into chaos. It was time. Now, Ilara broadcast to the Alliance fleet. Across the system, the seemingly disabled Alliance vessels suddenly powered up, their weapons targeting the specific vulnerabilities Ilara had created in the Krell formation. The counterattack was devastating, not because of the Alliance's firepower, but because it came from positions the Krell had dismissed as irrelevant. The might of the Dominion, which had seemed unstoppable for months, began to crumble in hours. On the inexorable dominance, alarms blared as system after system failed. The great memory core itself was corrupted, ancestral knowledge becoming scrambled and distorted. "Retreat," ordered Vexmolar, abandoning pride in the face of extinction. "All ships, emergency hyperspace protocols." But the Sentinel was there, hovering before the massive command ship like a dark star. Its hull had changed again, now appearing as a perfect reflective surface that showed the inexorable dominance its own image, but distorted, fractured, as if seen through a broken mirror. A communication channel opened, and Commander Ilara Voss appeared on the Krell command deck. Her augmented eyes seemed to see through Vexmolar into the depths of his being. "Archon Vex Malor of the Krell Dominion," she said, her voice strangely resonant. "Your conquest ends here." "What do you want?" demanded Vexmolar. "Why have humans returned now, after 1,000 years of hiding?" "We never hid," Ilara replied. "We watched. We learned. We evolved. And when we saw what you were doing to the galaxy, we decided it was time to remind everyone why the uncertainty principle is the most fundamental law of existence." She leaned forward, her image seeming to step through the projection field. "Your ships are disabled. Your fleet is scattered. But I haven't destroyed them. Not yet. That's your first lesson in human thinking. Mercy is not weakness. It's power. What do you demand?" asked Vexmolar, his harmonics subdued. "An end to conquest, a seat at the diplomatic table, and acknowledgement that there are things in this universe that cannot be controlled or predicted. They can only be experienced." For a moment, the ancient Krell leader considered resistance. The Dominion had never negotiated, never compromised. But as he looked at the human before him, he recognized something the Krell had forgotten long ago: the value of adaptation. "We will consider your terms," he said finally. Ilara nodded. "You have one standard day to withdraw your forces from Alliance space. After that, we continue this conversation on neutral ground, or we don't have it at all." Her image vanished, and the Sentinel moved away from the inexorable dominance, rejoining the Alliance fleet. The surviving Krell vessels, still capable of hyperspace travel, began to withdraw. Admiral Thela Vax watched in astonishment as the Krell armada retreated, something no one had witnessed in living memory. The Indomitable's command deck erupted in cheers as the last enemy ships disappeared into hyperspace. When Commander Voss transported back to the Alliance flagship, she was met with awe and gratitude. Warriors who had scoffed at the notion of a single ship changing the course of the war now looked at her with reverence. "You did it," Thilla said, clasping Ilara's hands in her four-armed embrace. "You forced the Krell to retreat." "For now," Ilara cautioned. "This was a battle, not the war. The Krell will adapt, that's what they do. But they've learned that their approach has limits." General Cronus approached, his crystalline form reflecting the lights of the command center. "You mentioned diplomacy. Do you truly believe the Krell will negotiate?" "They will," Ilara said confidently, "because for the first time, they've encountered something their logic cannot explain. Uncertainty has entered their collective consciousness, and that changes everything." Thilla studied her human ally with newfound respect. "And what of humanity? Will you return to your exile beyond the Crimson Veil?" Ilara's augmented eyes gleamed. "No. The time for hiding is over. Humanity is ready to take its place in galactic affairs, not as conquerors like the Krell, nor as passive observers like we've been for the past millennium." "As what then?" asked Thila. Ilara smiled, an expression that somehow combined wisdom and warning. "As a reminder that the universe is stranger than anyone imagines, and that sometimes chaos is the only appropriate response to tyranny." As the Alliance fleet regrouped, preparing for whatever came next, the Sentinel drifted nearby, its hull now as black as the void between stars. To those who looked closely, it seemed that pinpoints of light moved across its surface, not reflections, but tiny windows into other possibilities, other realities. The galaxy had changed irrevocably. The Krell Dominion's inexorable advance had been halted by a force they couldn't comprehend. The Alliance had found hope in their darkest hour, and humanity had revealed itself as something neither side had expected, not saviors, not conquerors, but agents of uncertainty in a universe too fond of absolutes. The reckoning had only just begun. Guardians of Tomorrow. The neutral meeting ground chosen for the negotiations was Nexus Station, an ancient trading post orbiting a binary star system at the edge of what had once been unclaimed space. Its architecture represented the collaborative efforts of a dozen extinct civilizations, corridors and chambers built over millennia to accommodate beings of all physiologies and environmental needs. In the Grand Concourse, representatives of the Galactic Alliance gathered on one side, their diverse forms a testimony to the Coalition's inclusive philosophy. Admiral Thilavax stood at their center, her four arms adorned with the ceremonial bands of her office. Beside her, High Counselor Zeth's containment suit hummed softly, occasional wisps of his gaseous form swirling within the transparent sections. Across the vast circular chamber, the Krell delegation waited in rigid formation. Their exoskeletons gleamed under the artificial light, sensory appendages occasionally twitching as they processed information at rates incomprehensible to most other species. Archon Vexmeller's imposing form dominated their group, his ancestral markings identifying him as a direct descendant of the Krell's founding lineage. Between these ancient enemies stood a single figure, Commander Ilara Voss. She had exchanged her flight suit for a formal uniform of deep blue with silver piping, but her augmented eyes remained the same, glowing slightly as they took in every detail of the historic gathering. "This assembly is convened to negotiate terms between the Galactic Alliance and the Krell Dominion," announced the station's AI in a dozen languages simultaneously. "As per agreement, the proceedings will be mediated by the human representative, Commander Ilara Voss of the Sentinel." Ilara stepped forward, addressing both delegations. "Before we begin, I wish to establish one fundamental principle. We are not here to apportion blame or justify past actions. We are here to forge a path forward that serves all sentient life in this galaxy." Vexmeller's harmonic voice resonated through the chamber. "The Krell do not negotiate from weakness. We are here because the human weapon presents a tactical anomaly that must be studied and understood." "The Sentinel is not a weapon," Ilara corrected calmly. "It's a tool for maintaining balance, much like this negotiation." "A semantic distinction," countered Vexmeller. "Its purpose is to counter Krell expansion. That defines it as a weapon." Thila intervened, her voice measured. Perhaps we should focus on substantive issues rather than definitions. The Alliance proposes an immediate cessation of hostilities and the establishment of recognized borders. Borders, said Vex Millar, are artificial constructs. The natural order is expansion and absorption of the weak by the strong. And yet, Ilara observed, the strong can be brought low by that which they do not understand. Strength takes many forms, Arkshan. The Krell's inability to comprehend this has led us to this moment. For hours, the negotiations continued, moving from broad principles to specific territorial concessions. The Alliance, despite their recent victory, remained realistic about their position. They could not hope to reclaim all that had been lost without devastating further conflict. The Krell, for their part, refused to relinquish systems they considered fully integrated into the Dominion. As tensions mounted and progress stalled, Ilara called for a recess. The delegations withdrew to separate chambers, leaving her alone in the Grand Concourse, or seemingly alone. "You can emerge now," she said to the apparently empty air. "I know you've been watching." A shimmer of light coalesced into a humanoid form, a man with features similar to Ilara's, though his eyes were normal, and his temples bore no augmentation scars. He wore a simple gray uniform with no insignia. "Director Voss," Ilara acknowledged. "I wondered when you make your presence known." "Protocol dictated observation before intervention," he replied. His voice was identical to hers, though pitched slightly lower. "The Council is pleased with your handling of the Krell threat, but concerned about your revelations regarding humanity's capabilities. The time for shadows has passed," Ilara said firmly. "The galaxy needs to know what we've become." "Not everything," cautioned the director. "Not yet." Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm that blared throughout the station. The station's AI announced, "Attention! Unknown vessels approaching. Energy signatures do not match any registered species." The director disappeared in another shimmer of light, just as the delegations rushed back into the Grand Concourse. "What's happening?" demanded Thela. Ilara accessed a nearby terminal, her augmented eyes interfacing directly with the station's systems. 5 ships approaching from the direction of the galactic core. Massive energy readings, unlike anything in Alliance or Krell records. The main view screen activated, showing 5 obsidian spheres, each perfectly smooth and reflecting no light. They moved in formation, but not with the mathematical precision of the Krell. Their pattern seemed almost organic, pulsating subtly as they approached. "The Harbingers," whispered an ancient Krell scientist in the delegation. "They were thought to be a myth." Vex Millar turned sharply. "Explain." "In our oldest memory cores, there are references to beings from the galactic core, entities that appeared when civilizations reached certain technological thresholds. They were said to judge whether species were worthy of continued existence." The station shuddered as an energy wave washed over it. Communication systems throughout the structure suddenly activated, and a voice that seemed composed of multiple tones speaking in unison addressed them. "We are the arbiters of evolution. Your conflicts have awakened us. Your technologies have reached the threshold. We will evaluate your worthiness." Ilara exchanged glances with Thela and Vex Millar. For the first time, the leaders of the galaxy's greatest powers shared a common emotion: concern. "I'll return to the Sentinel," Ilara said quickly. "Whatever these arbiters are, we need to be prepared." Vex Millar's sensory appendages quivered. "You believe your ship can stand against them. Even the ancestral memories speak of the Harbingers with fear." "I don't know," Ilara admitted. "But the Sentinel was built for the unknown. That's more than can be said for conventional forces." As she turned to leave, Thela caught her arm. "We should coordinate our response, Alliance and Krell, together." Vex Millar seemed about to object, then paused, his exoskeleton clicking softly as he processed this unprecedented suggestion. "Agreed. The threat assessment overrides existing conflicts." Ilara nodded. "Have your tactical officers coordinate with mine. But understand this: if these arbiters are what they claim, They won't be impressed by firepower alone. They'll be judging our capacity for growth, for transcending our limitations, including the limitation of seeing each other as enemies, asked Thela. Especially that one, Ilara confirmed. The Sentinel's interior had changed since the battle with the Krell fleet. The smooth, shifting walls now displayed complex mathematical equations and quantum formulations that rewrote themselves continuously. As Ilara synchronized with the ship's systems, she felt it responding to her concern, adapting its configuration for an unknown threat. Analysis of the Arbiter vessels, she requested. The ship's AI responded, its voice a perfect match for her own. The spheres exist partially outside normal spacetime. Quantum fluctuations suggest they can observe multiple timelines simultaneously. Their material composition defies conventional scanning. Weapons? Unknown. However, energy emissions indicate capability far beyond Krell or Alliance technology. Ilara processed this information as the Sentinel moved into position. The Alliance and Krell had hastily assembled a defensive formation, with 60 ships arranged to protect Nexus Station. It was an unprecedented collaboration. Species that had been trying to destroy each other days ago, now sharing tactical data and coordinating shield harmonics. The 5 obsidian spheres had stopped their approach, hanging motionless at the edge of the system. Then, without warning, one detached from the formation and accelerated toward the station at impossible speed. "Intercept course," Ilara commanded. The Sentinel responded instantly, moving to place itself between the approaching sphere and Nexus Station. The ship's quantum field engaged, creating a barrier of probability distortion that had proven so effective against the Krell. But the sphere passed through it, as if it weren't there. For a moment, Ilara felt something she hadn't experienced since her first neural link with the Sentinel. Surprise. The quantum field should have disrupted any conventional matter or energy. The sphere's immunity suggested it operated on principles even more fundamental than the Sentinel's technology. "Adapting parameters," she murmured, both to herself and a ship. The Sentinel's hull rippled, shifting from its reflective surface to absolute darkness, absorbing all light. Its quantum field reconfigured, no longer attempting to disrupt the sphere but to match its vibrational state, to understand it rather than oppose it. The sphere slowed, as if recognizing the change in approach. It halted a mere kilometer from the Sentinel, and for several minutes, the two vessels simply faced each other in silence. Then a communication channel opened, not through conventional systems, but directly into Ilara's consciousness. "You are not like the others," came the multi-tone voice of the Arbiters. "Your vessel exists in quantum superposition. Your mind bridges organic and technological states. You are interesting. We call it adaptation," Ilara responded. "It's humanity's defining trait. Is that why you hide your true nature from your allies, from your enemies?" The question pierced through Ilara's mental defenses. She felt the Sentinel responding protectively, reinforcing her neural firewalls. "We reveal what is necessary when it's necessary," she countered. "Humanity learned long ago that truth must sometimes be delivered in measured doses. A convenient rationalization," the Arbiters observed. "We have watched your kind for millennia. You fight, you destroy, you rebuild. An endless cycle of creation and annihilation. And now you have created vessels like yours, ships that bend reality itself. The Sentinel is unique," Ilara insisted. "No." The word echoed in her mind with absolute certainty. "It is the first of its kind to reveal itself, but not the only one to exist." Before Ilara could respond, the communication expanded, now including the leaders aboard Nexus Station. She could feel Thela's confusion and Vexmeller's methodical analysis as they were drawn into the mental link. "Behold," said the Arbiters, "the truth your human allies have withheld." Images flooded their shared consciousness, visions of a vast fleet hidden beyond the Crimson Veil. Not traditional vessels, but constructs like the Sentinel, each one uniquely designed, each one paired with a human consciousness. Hundreds of them, patrolling the borders of what appeared to be a thriving civilization. "Human space," whispered Thela in shock. "It's vast, far larger than we imagined." "A parallel development," observed Vex Nolar. "While the Alliance expanded outward and the Dominion conquered, the humans expanded inward, perfecting themselves and their technology rather than seeking territory." The Arbiter's voice resonated through their connected minds. "And now we present our judgment. All three of your civilizations have failed the test of evolutionary worthiness." "What?" Ilara's shock reverberated through the link. "On what grounds?" "The Alliance relies on consensus that breeds stagnation. The Krell impose order through dominance. And humans, you isolate your potential, intervening only when it serves your interests. None of you represent the future of sentient life." The 5 obsidian spheres began to pulse with energy, their surfaces rippling like liquid metal. "Your species will be reset," declared the Arbiters. "Your technologies reclaimed. Your memories preserved only as lessons for those who come after." Ilara fought against rising panic. The Sentinel was powerful, but she sensed the Arbiters operated on a level beyond even its capabilities. She needed time, a chance to understand what they were facing. "Wait," she projected into the shared consciousness. "Before you render final judgment, allow us to demonstrate what you haven't seen, our capacity to transcend our limitations." "You have had millennia to demonstrate this," the Arbiters replied. "The evidence suggests you cannot overcome your nature." "Then look deeper," insisted Ilara. With a mental command, she directed the Sentinel to lower all defenses, making herself completely vulnerable to the Arbiter's scrutiny. "See not just what we've done, but what we're capable of becoming." Through their shared link, she felt Thela's surprise and Vex Nolar's alarm at her action. But then, remarkably, she felt them follow her lead. The Alliance Admiral opened her mind fully, sharing not just her tactical knowledge but her hopes, her fears, her vision for a united galaxy. The Krell Archon, after a moment's hesitation, did the same, revealing the ancestral memories that drove the Dominion's conquests, but also the growing recognition among Krell leaders that their path was unsustainable. "Interesting," observed the Arbiters. "You choose vulnerability when faced with extinction." "We choose trust," Ilara corrected, "the foundation of any evolution beyond our current limitations." The obsidian sphere's pulsations slowed, their energy signatures stabilizing. For several minutes, there was silence in the shared consciousness as the Arbiters processed what they had received. "Your potential remains uncertain," they finally declared, "but your response suggests possibilities we had not calculated. We will observe further before rendering final judgment." The mental link began to fade, but before it dissolved completely, the Arbiters left one final message: "Be warned. The challenges you have faced are merely precursors to what awaits. The galaxy harbors threats beyond your comprehension. Only united can you hope to survive what comes next." The obsidian spheres withdrew, accelerating back toward the galactic core and disappearing in flashes of light that bent space itself around them. In the aftermath of the Arbiter's departure, the Grand Concourse of Nexus Station became the site of a historical moment. Representatives of the Alliance, the Krell Dominion, and humanity, now officially represented by a delegation that had arrived from beyond the Crimson Veil, gathered to formalize what would become known as the Tripartite Accord. "We stand at a crossroads," Ilara addressed the assembly. "The Arbiters have shown us that our individual paths lead to stagnation or destruction. Only by combining our strengths can we hope to face whatever comes next." Thela nodded in agreement. "The Alliance offers stability, diversity, and a forum for peaceful resolution of conflicts. These remain valuable contributions to our shared future." "The Dominion," stated Vex Nolar, his harmonics modulated to convey sincerity, "brings discipline, technological efficiency, and unified purpose. These two are necessary." "And humanity," continued Ilara, "offers innovation, adaptability, and a willingness to challenge assumptions, even our own." The director had reappeared after the crisis, now standing openly with the human delegation. His resemblance to Ilara was unmistakable, and rumors had already begun circulating about the nature of human reproduction and longevity. "For too long," he said, addressing the assembly, "we humans hid in the shadows, intervening only when absolutely necessary. We believed isolation would protect both us and the galaxy from our chaotic nature. We were wrong." The treaty that emerged from these discussions transformed galactic politics. The Krell would cease their conquests but retain systems already fully integrated into the Dominion. The Alliance would reorganize to become more decisive and action-oriented, and humanity would gradually reveal its true civilization, sharing technologies that could benefit all species while carefully managing those that could cause harm. Most significantly, they established the Sentinel Protocol, a joint defensive initiative that would combine Krell precision, Alliance diversity, and human unpredictability to create a new kind of guardian force for the galaxy. 6 months later, Ilara stood on the observation deck of the Sentinel, watching as the first joint training exercises took place. Alliance ships maneuvered alongside Krell vessels, their crews learning to coordinate tactics that had once been used against each other. A small contingent of human chaos engines, now revealed to the galaxy, demonstrated techniques for incorporating quantum uncertainty into conventional fleet operations. "They're adapting faster than expected," observed the director, who had joined her for the observation. "Necessity is a powerful motivator," Ilara replied. "The Arbiters made it clear this is just the beginning." "Do you believe they'll return?" "I'm certain of it." Ilara's augmented eyes tracked the movements of the combined fleet. "But I'm less certain about their true nature or intentions." "Explain," prompted the director. "Their technology, their knowledge of us, their ability to access our minds, it all suggests beings far beyond our development stage. Yet they withdrew based on a simple demonstration of cooperation." "You think it was too easy?" Ilara nodded slowly. "I think we were being tested, but not in the way they claimed. The Arbiters wanted to see if we could unite against a common threat, perhaps in preparation for something worse." The director's expression darkened, the ancient warnings about the void beyond. "Possibly." Ilara turned from the viewport to face him directly. "Which is why the Sentinel Protocol must succeed. We're no longer fighting for territory or resources or even ideological differences. We're fighting for the right of all sentient life to determine its own evolutionary path." Below them, a Krell dreadnought executed a perfect maneuver in tandem with Alliance cruisers, their shields harmonizing to create a defensive formation that would have been impossible for either fleet alone. Nearby, a human chaos engine demonstrated how to create quantum corridors through which conventional ships could travel, effectively doubling their tactical mobility. "They're learning," the director acknowledged. "But will it be enough?" Ilara's gaze returned to the stars beyond the fleet. "That depends on what's coming. But whatever it is, they won't face it alone." The Silent Sentinel. The Krell Dominion's warships sliced through space like obsidian knives, their hulls absorbing all light that touched them. 12 massive dreadnoughts formed the vanguard of their invasion force, each one capable of reducing a planet's surface to molten slag within hours. Behind them followed hundreds of smaller vessels, arranged in the precise geometric patterns that had become the harbinger of extinction for countless civilizations. Admiral Thela Vax of the Galactic Alliance stood before the holographic display, her 4 arms crossed tightly against her chest. Her leathery skin had paled to a sickly gray, a clear sign of distress among the Ceridian people. "Outpost Epsilon has fallen," reported her first officer, a tall Moravian whose crystalline exoskeleton reflected the emergency lights flashing throughout the command center. "That's the 5th defensive line breached in 2 standard months." Thela's inner eyelids fluttered in a gesture of resignation. "And what of the Pellerin fleet?" "Annihilated. 700 ships reduced to debris in less than an hour. The Krell didn't even slow down." The command center fell silent. The Pellorans had been renowned for their military prowess, their technologies second only to the Krell themselves. If they couldn't stand against the Dominion, who could? The Council is assembling an emergency session, the first officer continued. They're requesting your presence, Admiral. Thela nodded slowly. Ready my shuttle. The Alliance Council chamber was a vast amphitheater carved from a single asteroid, its walls adorned with the flags of over 300 member species. Today, nearly half of those flags were draped in the black shrouds of extinction. High Counselor Zeth, a gaseous entity contained within an ornate environmental suit, floated to the center of the chamber. This emergency session is called to order. Admiral Vax will present her assessment of our current strategic position. Thela moved to the central platform, her steps heavy with the burden of what she must say. The holographic projector activated, displaying a map of the galaxy with a steadily expanding shadow marking Krell territory. Members of the Council, she began, I regret to inform you that our situation is dire. The Krell Dominion has adapted to every defensive strategy we've employed. Their ability to absorb energy weapons, neutralize kinetic barriers, and predict our tactical movements suggests they've been studying us for centuries. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as representatives conferred with their advisors. At current rates of advance, Thela continued, the Dominion will reach the core worlds within 30 standard days. I recommend immediate evacuation of all civilians to the emergency sanctuaries beyond the Crimson Veil. The chamber erupted in uproar. Evacuation meant abandoning thousands of years of history and culture. It meant defeat. There must be another option, shouted the Arcturan delegate, her bioluminescent appendages flashing with agitation. High Counselor Zeth's suit emitted a calming harmonic. If anyone has an alternative strategy, now is the time to present it. From the back of the chamber, a small figure stood. Archivist Tolan, one of the few remaining Venchi, stepped forward. The ancient scholar's 6 eyes blinked nervously as he approached the central platform. There is a possibility, he said, his voice barely audible, though it may be nothing more than a desperate hope. Thela gestured for him to continue. In my research of pre-Alliance records, I discovered references to a species called humans. They inhabited a small solar system in the Orion Arm, and though technologically inferior to many races, they displayed unusual capabilities. Humans, interrupted the Davi representative. They're extinct. Their homeworld was destroyed in the cataclysm over 1,000 years ago. That is what we believed, Tolan replied. But I recently uncovered transmissions suggesting otherwise. It appears some humans survived and established a colony beyond the Crimson Veil. According to ancient accounts, they possessed a unique approach to warfare, unpredictable, innovative, and remarkably effective despite their limitations. The council chamber fell silent as representatives contemplated this revelation. Are you suggesting we seek help from a species that has hidden from galactic affairs for a millennium? Asked Thela. I am suggesting, Tolan said carefully, that we have nothing to lose by trying. The transmission was simple, broadcast on frequencies so old they had been forgotten by most communication systems. To the human colonies beyond the Crimson Veil, the Galactic Alliance faces extinction at the hands of the Krell Dominion. If you receive this message, if you remember your place among the stars, we ask for your aid. We have nothing to offer but our gratitude and the promise that your contribution will not be forgotten.